Little things have changed for you and I. Harder times have changed my life, but not my heart, not my heart.
She had disappeared further into the depths of the cave by then, after the captain had been trailing her. A collection of crystalline perched rocks that gouged into the walls is where she chose to hide away with a slight possibility of safety. Though stranded, nonetheless, she might gather a plan down there. Only a flickering charge of firelight held her mind from escaping into a state of gruesome terror as the floor of the cave mysteriously began to move around from beneath her feet. She stumbled and suddenly tried instinctively for a hand grip onto a glistening rock that belonged to the wall, that it might hold her from falling down into a bottomless pit. However, it crumbled from her strength. So it seemed that death might take her as she teetered on at the edge. She was panicking while still bent over and hanging over a ledge of earth that could disintegrate into a tight, worthless rubble mass in seconds under even her meager weight. She felt like screaming for someone's help. It was useless, but she still tried. "Ah, please, someone help me," she uttered in a weak voice, but loud enough to be heard over the trapped air that was being used up deep below to feed the flowing lava stream. The underground lava tube constantly spitting fire from the smoldering earth like red fire waves. "The steam is burning my hand. I can't hold on much longer," she whimpered. The fiery steam also was beginning to turn her hands cherry red, showing the intense pain that she was beginning to feel. As the heat rose, so did the temperatures around her body, and every rock around the mouth of the opening had discolored into a black color, and her hands and legs were becoming overheated from it all. Somehow, gathering her inner strength, she kept a balance and clung for her dear life as the flowing river down below became ever more eager to consume her flesh. A naked figure suddenly appeared at the breach of the cave, and then mustered itself into motion to get within arm's reach over nearby her, the girl. A man was coming, but would he help? She nervously thought to herself. "Hold on! Do not lose your grip, or you'll die! I'll be there soon," a voice confided to her. "I'm here to help you." And then quickly the figure reached down and pulled her out of the crevice. With weakened legs, she immediately fell to the ground and sprawled there to recover while breathing less heavily than before. She lay there admiring the naked man creature that had also faced death to rescue her. He was slightly short, but a burly sort of man, strong looking, but somehow he appeared to be different. Very peculiar to her in other ways. She could not see him clearly, but as an image only. After he had purposely backed inside of a flickering shadow to hide for a while. Regaining possession of his steel sword and a leather pouch, he was prepared for the others, gripping his weapons tightly into his hands as he watched her with utmost curiosity. "You could have died," he said to her, while she recovered more. Slightly, she reopened her beautiful eyes far enough to reveal to him that they were indeed brown. She grimaced only to look at him once again. "An elf-like man," she thought to herself, but said nothing of it to him. "A devil, perhaps, born to be perfect, with very long silver hair that tumbled with slight curls downward onto his tanned backside. No, surely not that either. Carefully she pondered her thoughts even more. "I'll take you somewhere safe," he neatly said to her before offering up his strong hand once again. "Yes, thank you," she graciously replied to him. She received his hand into her own, and then was lifted using his strong arms, and she finally could stand on her own with strength. "Come, we must hurry and follow the deep winds into the depths of Terra. The cave will allow us a passage, lest they find you here." He ushered her onto her to follow him, perhaps deep into the hellish cave. A terrifying idea for her, but something else was even more frightening than all of the darkness that was coming their way. He moved for a short distance, then stopped a few yards away, as he could see that she was also still afraid to come. "Come, can't you hear the coyotes at the canyon rim howling out there? That means they are coming in for us. Don't you know that evil will soon be here?" he said. "Come, follow me to safety, and I will request the great Ordum shield to light the cave floor. But we must travel for a short distance before I request it. Otherwise the evil men will follow," he sanctioned to her. A fear much greater than darkness overcame her, and the abyss of the cave soon swallowed their forms. He carried her to the threshold of his mansion that stood against a hill. It had been cleared of foliage by some slaves accustomed to the master's wealth and generosity so long ago. A lurching shadow from a perched gargoyle outlined its dark figure onto the scattered granite rocks stretching a long distance from the front entranceway fascia. It was a log house wonderment, especially in these times, with long sun-cooked thick timber encompassed by narrow mortar joints, hiding some dried straw inside its midst. The building of it was once commandeered by his father, yet laboriously raised by many unfortunate misfits over a century now past. His elder had taught them while passing through the area and commissioned them for their labor. Through it all, they worked very hard to build it. Unfortunately for them, they'd gained a foothold on the location with time, and then they'd tried to build their own cabins nearby. All the folks were mysteriously killed over a short period of time, mysteriously to date. Not a soul, no one knows why. Now only the burnt cinders remain of several cabins lay in heaped piles where women and children once lived. This was long before gold or the war brought people by. These were just lost crusaders carrying onward into a spectrum of oblivion. Endless time brought the crown of the morning sun climbing ever higher above the black abyss called the earth. Then came a calling from many of the local forest creatures. A hiding wolf pack called out to someone, yet no reply came. A black bear growled at the door, only to sniff his way further down the trail, following his curiously long nose. A yearling chipping sparrow sang out a morning song from up in a nearby Douglas fir tree. No apparent danger, just the morning dew. He carried her into a bedroom and laid her down, where he covered her with blankets made of beaver pelts and coyote hide. He then left her side for another place. She lay sleeping at the mercy of her maker inside a darkened room where the air was quite damp, cold, and full of quietness, until she awoke and a needle could be heard falling in extreme silence. Intensely intrigued, she made no noises, while she wondered of many things. His name, who was he, she wondered. The name of the man that had recently saved her. Maybe the house could tell her something, even a small clue. She rose from the bed, leaving the blanket still warm behind, to find a mansion that was dark and full of evading shadows that vanished from behind every creaking door when she opened them from inside. A dark hallway was soon to be found, only she passed through it quietly, leading her out to the main living area. The dead surely live here, where no real human has been for years. She felt certain that it seemed that way. Dust-soiled brown sheets that covered the old hand-carved furniture, tables, and wooden chairs hid ghosts underneath of many dismissed memories. She felt as if she had climbed into a coffin concealed from everyone. Who was he, she thought again, while resting for a moment, and then further taking time to listen for signs of life existing within the house. Even a single domestic mouse might provide her some solace. But no indoor sounds erupted, just the birds singing in the far away. No voices, no clues, just animal heads living in the walls. She pulled a sheet from one of the sofas underneath. It was nicely made out of pine wood, varnished with darker colored solution. But no clues, nothing present that might fall out or be lost from the pocket of a rising person. A wooden mantle held up the weight of a hand-carved sail ship on its upper ledge, precariously sailing into a drawn background of the once lively Atlantic Ocean. Oh, that's spectacular! Maybe it was a moment that he had once experienced, she thought, as her mind dwelled into the scene of the picture. Not too far away, the man of her concern was cutting wood with an axe, and he recently had stopped to sharpen the blade of it. He was setting upon a stump that once supported other wood that had already become cinders inside of his fireplace. He heard the sound of footsteps behind him, but never turned to see whom it might be. You are so very noble, sir, whatever your name is, and I thank you very kindly for saving me last night. Speaking from behind him. What is your name? How can I address you otherwise? She asked him quite frankly. Goth is my name, he returned lightly, and then asked her in a kind manner, And to whom am I speaking? Or should I just call you Cave Woman? He smartly insulted her while dropping his eyes in order to think further into the conversation. It's my mother's name, shared by both of us, as she is still alive. She is not a cave woman, neither am I. Sorry, I didn't intend disrespect, actually. It is my pleasure to meet someone of your beauty, and as you can see, I have few guests, if ever, in this most humble of places. You see, there are only miserable travelers that I seldom meet, soldiers or the misfits like the slavers, thieves at best. Soldiers periodically come around for some extra supplies, usually for their wounded ones. They'll gather up your medicine before heading off to the war in the East. The East, do you mean Virginia or Washington? She gathered. Yes, there are more states trying to join in for the seceders or Confederate side. Last I've heard, even Texas is getting involved with the Southern ranks. I do not condone slavery, nor will I ever. I guess that makes me a wannabe Yankee dog, he said with a smile strapped across his face. Why don't you join in the war, Goth? I mean, if you are a Yank. She brightened up the conversation minutely by asking him such a difficult question as moments passed in his thinking from it. I should not leave here from my house and this place only to fight in the Eastern man's great war of brother against brother. Goodwill certainly will prevail without me in it there. It will end soon enough with only one victor, probably the Yanks. Left all alone, my home would certainly crumble to the earth, falling down under the elements of nature or those of mankind. I would carry my wounds back to nothing more than black carbon and dust. You see, in this place, every stranger is your enemy. I give medicine to the Yanks that are catching the railroad train heading east because they need it, and sometimes even shelter. I kill the slavers, if I possibly can, because they will kill me. Everyone wants to take something away from you. Everyone. There are times when there has been war right here on these grounds. A man has died on the stump from which you now rest, my dear. I know because I killed him right there, defending my life and home. He was a damn lunatic who wanted me dead for no reason that I could figure. He jumped the morning train, falling into the ravine just after crossing over the trestle, hoping to find an abandoned house high above in the timberlands. He had noticed it from the high bend in the tracks before it falls into the valley. When I approached him in the yard, he became very arrogant towards me and tried to maul me in the soil. I still carry a scar on my shoulder from his skinning knife. It cut into my flesh deeply. But he is gone from us now and quite dead. Leaving my home for those to ponder would be a disgrace. For the time being, he had almost spoken all of it to her. And finally he rested with her on top of the stump and spoke softer to her now. What about you? I mean, how did you end up in that cave? And how many of you were there? I mean, of women. He spoke further and then hesitated into silence while she thought with him about everything that had been said. There were 2 more women. Maybe they are dead by now at the hands of the captain, or who could know? He would shoot anyone that tried to escape from him, even me. Oftentimes, he gave me a strong punch in the ribs, just to remind me of this one thing. I wanted to break his grubby paws, had I been strong enough. He was a brutal man for sure, and I should have killed him back at the cave. I would have done so if I had known for sure. Anyway, things seemed to happen so quickly. And after the smell of sulfur filled my nose, then I knew something was up with you inside the cave, and I had to discover. He reasoned with her with a little extra sensitivity in order to show her that he could be sympathetic and quite understanding. Oh, I almost forgot. Who was that man that was not forthright off in the foliage hiding? I was watching him from nearby the cave. Surely someone must have noticed his stench. His question shocked her, and she said, I seen no one else around the campsite, only the cowboys for sure. And I only smelled a rotting dead thing, but I cared not to find it. Was that a living man that smelled that bad? She had to ask. Oh yeah, that was him. I could have fainted, but I didn't. Goth kind of snickered after saying his piece. Gee whiz, what a night. She seemed relieved after speaking, and their talking together, realizing each other as friends, or so it seemed. Aye, what a night, he seconded. Hey, Would you give me a hand with this timber? I need to roll it over slightly, so it can be cut easier. The grain is wrong for me to accident," he asked her nicely. "Yes, for sure," the girl named Anna answered. She helped him roll it over. The sun was close at high noon, and the rays from it felt warm upon her skin. She always enjoyed the feeling of it in the month of May, special this time of year, when her father was born. Last year, she forgot to get him a present. Now she wished she had remembered to do so. She wondered further about him now. Could he be lost? She thought. He is a freelance artist that can at any time leave his home to travel wide and far to do a single painting for someone, or so inclined otherwise. She knew her father quite well, and that he would capture and paint a single piece, or all of the war somehow. Somewhere he would find the right picture and would paint it in his own special way. She loved him so much. A sparrow flew into the old slab shed. Its meddling at the gusset beam caught her eyes, bringing her back again out of her daze. Goth was hacking away at the fallen log, swinging with full might against it, yet it splintered ever so slowly, it seemed to her. From the size of his large muscle in his arms, she knew that he was a outback countryman, accustomed to cutting his own wood and handling heavy objects. She enjoyed watching him work so hard. It was good for him not to be slothful. If such a man like Goth could ever be lazy, she doubted it. A lazy man she always held in utter disdain, and would never marry one, not even if he were rich. Only a hard man that is willing to go the limit to get the job done would she somehow choose for her own husband. That pine wood is mighty tough for an axe to cut, even if it is considered soft wood, she said, as her eyes seared away at it, as if she could burn a slit through the wood with mere vision, and would have done so gladly to gather his undivided attention if possible. The afternoon moved along quite nicely for Goth and Anna. They seemed to grow together. Goth had slashed enough wood for the night already, yet he continued chopping for the sake of having something to do. A glistening silver creek formed from the glacier higher up the northern territory and bumped into the hollow that held Goth's log cabin at the threshold of a spectacular thick forest named Sherwood Forest, sometimes ago by his elder father. The misted pines, the fishing, the blue skies had saved him from a growing anger after suffering the tragedy of his father's death and killing. Goth Sr. was dreadfully killed one day by a large brown grizzly bear amidst a blizzard that came on early in November and froze the creeks from early fishing for the bear, causing her to be starved. His body was later found by young Goth eaten and mauled close by the old shed. Goth still struggles to escape the haunting memory from the discovery every time he goes near it. Fur from the brown sow that killed him remains untouched and embedded inside a wood sliver stuck in the space between the wall and it. He won't touch it ever. The hand of fate led to the snow covering the bear's tracks, quickly preventing her from being hunted down and killed. His father's claim now spreads out for hundreds of miles in all directions. Without end, it seems. It was once much smaller, but he kept grabbing more and more claims as they were surveyed until he died. Anna, please go to the shed and grab me a file for this axe head. It needs sharpening, you see. I cannot go in that place. It has haunting memories for me inside. She boldly went and gathered the flat file, bringing it back for the log to set it upon.
Something happened in there, didn't it? I can tell there is something beyond. Do you want to speak of it?
She asked, knowing that it's sometimes better to let certain things go away. Yes, there is something beyond me, and no, please. It upsets me tremendously to speak of it, and let's not spoil this fine afternoon, my dear, he said to her almost apologetically, and she understood very well. She was quite beautiful, and in fact took his mind off of it all. Garth could not help it, noticing her special womanly features, her long blonde hair curled in places down its full length, giving it a very sleek appearance, as soft as satin could ever be. Electricity gathered strands of her hair into particular parts and crevices of the soiled cotton shirt that she wore, and then fell from there down past her perfectly shaped, soft, feminine buttocks. The white slacks could not conceal the delicate treasure emerging from within them, and she boiled with sex appeal at every movement. It was certainly an excitement for Garth to watch her gracefulness in every gesture and movement as she had earlier walked to the old shed. Anna, can we go inside the house? I need a break from this wood cutting. My back is killing me today. You know, it was hurt recently.
No, I wasn't aware of this, she replied, being somewhat concerned for him.
Alone, and on a hot summer day last summer, I fell through an eagle's nest from the side of the trestle lying in the meadow below, and finally ended up crashing onto the hard rocks below. A mountain lion befriended me there for days and brought me dead things to eat until I managed to recover. Bracing my back and legs with pine branches, she saved my life and hunted for me. He shared his memories with her like they had happened yesterday.
How long did you suffer on the rocks?
She inquired of him. Only 7 days, he quickly answered her inquiry.
7 days, she gasped.
Somehow that accident helped me get over my father's death and the hate stigma that I once felt from it happening. For the longest stretch, I really hated Mother Nature's critters deeply. But now all that is reverted to normal, and I love them once again like I should, because of the mother lion. Since then, she has returned, and she still wants to be mother. She still wants to mother me, like I were her cub somehow. Last time, she appeared on the high rocks and hissed at me for a while. Then he pointed northward to the rocks that grew out of the basin that formed a mouth for his grassy yard.
What a wonderful creature she must be to have done such a thing,
she concluded.
Yes, indeed.
She is my friend forever. My body grows tired now, and I must rest. I have cut all that is possible for now. With her lovely eyes so full of energy and life, Anna studied the mountainside and lower rocks for a while, looking for a movement or a clue that might reveal an existing den for the lioness. Nothing. Only birds and green foliage stayed there in her sight as the wind moved through the shaking pine needles. Reality had abruptly changed drastically for her in moments, from being an enslaved captive girl to a free, respected woman overnight, befuddled in her mind. She was also very tired like Garth and decided to abandon the yard with him for the comfort of the house. In the kitchen chamber, he was preparing a lunch made out of elk meat, green beans, sweet white corn taken from the clay brick shelter out in the rear yard. Many rare adobe bricks were surrendered from the New Mexican territories during his father's retreat from the Mexican-American War years earlier to build it with, but now precious glasses filled full of stored garden vegetables harvested in the previous year are kept cool within it for such special occasions.
Come help, have you forgotten how to cut green beans?
No, I'm very talented with cutlery, even a pocket knife. I once used one to escape from a bank robbery back east in Charlotte, Virginia, before the Confederates became legitimate. They took the loot and left a dynamite bomb inside the safe. Later it blew the whole place to cinders. You probably heard of them, the notorious Coolie Gang. It was later found out it was they that robbed the Smith City Bank, killing no one around.
Yes, indeed, I've heard about it. I thought everyone has heard about that heist. Surely it was a miracle from God, that no one was killed.
Goth was entranced with memories after speaking.
Yes, truly.
She agreed with his declaration and spoke further.
The Coolie Gang has never been caught to date, and it's been proposed that they are hiding out somewhere in southern Colorado or in northern New Mexico region.
Could this be true? He suspicioned unto her. Maybe. I wonder who that man could have been that was clandestinely hanging around outside of the captain's campground last night. A lurcher in the dark. Maybe he was a scout for them or something like that. Fear boiled inside of her now as he spoke to her about the gang. Yet she had grown accustomed to possessing the undesirable feeling of it to a certain degree. I read an article before I left on the stage from Charlotte, warning people of cannibalism in the Western Territories and Reaches. The Nottinghamshire Evening Post covered in great detail, claiming that there had been cannibals on the loose out here. Who knows about it for sure? I mean, the Eastern reporters are in the East. Maybe it's only my imagination going places on me, surely. He spoke of it knowing that invaders can be quite cunning before selectively choosing their prey. No, it is very true, my dear. There is such a thing happening here, and nearby us. It's very cannibalic. I have seen evidence down near Parceltown, where it is a rampant occurrence happening every month. Most townsmen there are aware of it. The elders gossip continuously from fear of its possibilities mainly. He said, while delving a fork into the browning elk meat inside the sizzling skillet. Greasy steam filled with water vapor shot in all directions as he put the lid back on it, burning his fingers slightly in the process. He plunged his burnt digit into his mouth, sucking on it with his lips, suffering to hide the grimace. Then he returned back to the oak table with her, still sitting down. Would you like to get more comfortable while I cook dinner? There's a robe made out of red yarn that my mother once knitted and used to wear in the guest room, where you awoke earlier to the morning in this house. A shower room is available in the den by the large picture window. It is very capacious in the bathroom with clean towels. Please make yourself at ease, because in this place there are no villains living here. You're very safe with me. I need no help anymore preparing our supper, so please comfort yourself here in this place. His mouth nearly gathered a foot in it. Goth had lived for ages all alone and had nearly forgotten about women. Trifling chitter-chatter had led his thoughts elsewhere, to forget that telling a good woman while working inside the kitchen that her help was completely unnecessary would lead to trouble, maybe later even vengeance. Nonetheless, her personality and jovial spirit was received by him like warm water to a frostbitten wound, necessary and vitally overwhelming. It was warm at the cabin now, as the evening proceeded. After a shower, Anna had gathered up some cut wood, managing to kindle a rising fire in the fireplace after her shower. While placing the wood inside the chamber, there was something unusual she noticed inside of it. The gold in it shined similarly like his father's life once did. All along the sides of it lay a weaving strand of black carbon soot that never made it up the flue, containing traces of gold dust, still embedded in the brick from his father's early smelting discoveries. There could have been ounces of the precious metal lost to the thirsty brick matter, as it will absorb the hot burning gold into itself like a sponge will feel from being released down from the hand of a butcher onto the floor of a cattle slaughterhouse. She liked the feel of the yarn robe around her body, as it was nice looking and very warm. "Anna, come to dinner. Dinner is on." Goth, having finished preparing dinner now, called out to her, and then repeatedly rang an old supper bell that was once used to beacon him to a meal by his mother. "I'll be there in a moment," she replied back to the yelling man while looking down the once darkened corridor. It seemed shorter now, somehow, because many candles were illuminated along its full length, but in sections only, as shadows were sent down from the flame tips above images trembling near the long footboard. Light night devils, sanctioned from the dark powers of the universe to show themselves there. She felt good about Goth. He was nice so far, and he didn't seem to be inconsistent at all with her. Heirloom china decorated the red cloth that covered the oak tabletop that had lost some of its color to time. Dinner simmered hot for them both, and Anna was anxious to eat some of Goth's cooking. Elk meat she had acquired a taste for long before coming west, and it fell upon her taste buds like honey to a bear. The redness of the creature still remained in the meat, and that was the honey for her as she ate with him at the table, and life was once again good.
"Go on, open the window,"
she said boldly.
"It's a bit smoky in here from the burning wood and hot grease."
She let it out, the words even against her breathing, even though earlier she had managed to forage from her stockpile of etiquette manners, and never spoke of anything about the stench from all the smoke that filled the rooms within the grand old house. He pulled the full-size window towards him into the room where they sat. In the midst of the yard was growing a severe darkness, and warm air from the yard was changing into a nighttime breeze. It crawled up onto his hairy arm.